Ever since its inception, I have been a fan of the YouTube podcast Every Frame a Pause, or EFAP. The podcast is hosted by the YouTuber Mauler, along with his current co-host, Rags and Fringy. They typically talk about trending entertainment in the form of breakdowns or responses to takes from other reviewers. Aside from the podcast, however, each host will, on occasion, cover individual topics on their respective channels in the form of a review or critique. Way back in 2022, Marvel Studios shat out Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and while I've pretty much ignored Marvel since Infinity War, the advent of No Way Home brought me back, like some kind of frickin' honeypot. Thankfully, I had an Indian viewing, but the scenes I happened across during my brief skimming were the Bruce Campbell and Illuminati scenes. I was so incredibly flummoxed and angered by what I saw that I took the first flight back to America. A short while later, Mauler released a video in which he explained in great detail just how unequivocally soup-brained the whole thing was. His video, of course, was met with detractors, and some of them were responded to on EFAP. This was a piece of what inspired me to make my video, but a larger part of it was Mauler's April Fool's videos. Until 2022, Mauler would release an annual video that parodied many of the creators that were covered on EFAP. However, he lost the drive to make them, and decided to retire the series. So I thought I'd take a shot at something similar. Basically, I took some of my favorite bad arguments, dumb quotes, and cockeyed concepts covered on the podcast and made a video directed at Mauler. I also added some silly things that just came to my mind at the time. I quite liked the finished product, and intended to make a follow-up video that explained the nonsense. Unfortunately, my living situation took an inconvenient turn, and I lost the motivation to record myself. I'm still not where I want to be with that, but it's been a full year since the video came out, so I figured I'd bunker down and finish this at least. So, here's my explanation of my cringy Doctor Strange video. I hope you enjoy.
I didn't want to make this video.
Off to a great start, the classic I didn't want to make this. I feel like this is said to give the impression that you went above and beyond to cover a subject, not because of passion or enjoyment, but because the public deserves to know, and you're the only one with the fortitude to brave this topic. The reality is that the internet is full of crazy conversations that happen every day, and you could have talked about any of them. If you are covering a topic, it's probably because you have some level of investment in that discussion, i.e., you did want to make your video. And I, in fact, wanted to make this one.
But there are some weirdos out there that won't let people simply enjoy movies.
This is a criticism leveled at Mauler from time to time, and it comes from the fact that he will spend several hours pointing out ways in which a movie fails. The sentiment behind the criticism could be that his critiques will point out things that may have gone unnoticed, and once you recognize those things you may not enjoy the movie as you once did. It could also be that you think he's a liar trying to steal people's happiness, like the Grinch on Christmas. The reality is simply that movies have gotten progressively worse over the last 10 years, especially from the likes of Disney or Warner Brothers, and Mauler enjoys discussing these things. But more importantly, criticizing anything is a way of trying to get it to improve. Pointing out flaws and fixing them will make things stronger. Constantly improving to reach the best outcome possible is a virtue worth your while.
Most recently, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness released, and it was one of the best Marvel films in years.
There's always some nut out there that has to be the contrarian. It feels like some people will claim a love of something just to spite its detractors, when the reality is that you just make yourself look like a freak.
With incredible characters, state-of-the-art CGI, and a clear vision for where to go moving forward.
This line has two uses. One of them I'll discuss later, but the other has to do with the editing. You watch evil Doctor Strange fly out of the window and get impaled on a spike, referencing how the Marvel franchise is in freefall and likely on its way to death.
But then the man-baby haters started making their whiny videos.
Sometimes EFAP covers a person that doesn't properly use punctuation when speaking, and you can confuse their meaning as a result. Also, there are a lot of insults that I just find tired and overused, and man-baby is one of them. So I rush through a combo of words to confuse the intention, while also adding a clip from this movie to confuse it even further.
I don't really care that anyone made a video criticizing this masterpiece of a movie.
Oh lord. So yeah, this is another one that is said too often in video essays. I don't actually care. It feels like people do not fully grasp the meaning of the phrase. If you didn't care, then you wouldn't be investing so much effort into a video on the subject.
But then I saw a video by this guy I've never heard of that was 5 hours long.
I kind of forget the reference for this one. I think it was that someone was pretending to not know who Mahler was, but I'm not sure who it was or the exact circumstance.
I was literally found-dumbed that anyone would spend more time talking about a movie than it took to film.
I put a couple of jumbled phrases in here, partially because sometimes people covered on EFAP will make mistakes when speaking and seem not to notice them in editing. But also because I find it funny to misspeak, mispronounce, or jumble words intentionally sometimes. As for the line about talking about a movie longer than it took to film, some people, for whatever reason, think it's bad to have a review or critique longer than the piece of media in question. I find this very perplexing, because describing the actions or conversations of a film is usually going to take longer than how they play out on screen. I don't know why some people put a time limit on discussion like that. But the main focus of my joke here is that people will spend years working on a film that will only run about 90 to 120 minutes. Surely they spend more time discussing and planning it than the runtime.
I would never give a video like this 5.5 minutes of my time, let alone 5.5 hours.
This was a thing that someone said. Basically, someone on Twitter said this about Mahler's video, probably thinking they were clever. Not realizing, of course, that 5.5 would actually be 5 hours and 30 minutes, whereas Mahler's video was 5 hours and 50 minutes.
I thought we real critics agreed that we wouldn't criticize this movie so that the reviews would even out. But this guy broke the rule.
So this was in reference to a thing about the Rings of Power. For some weird reason, there was an agreement among some critics not to give their review on the show until it had been out for a while. And Mahler received flack for not adhering to it, despite not agreeing to it. And also it sounded stupid on the face of it. I also used the clip of American Chavez breaking her own rule about interdimensional travel.
Criticizing media has become a way of life for these shallow husks of men.
Somebody said that. I think it goes all the way back to EFAP 50, where somebody just said a bunch of mean things about EFAP, while likely not even having context for who they are.
And quite frankly, the world would be a much better place overall if we just let people enjoy things.
Somebody said that too. It's the idea that if you criticize something, you run the risk of making people less happy with it. But things like happy and sad or love and hate are not exclusively good and evil. You can love something that is bad for you or be happy doing evil. Which is why I used the clip of Topher Grace saying, "I like being bad, it makes me happy." As on the nose as that is. Sometimes people can hurt themselves without realizing it, and it is worthwhile to try and pull them out of that situation, even if they claim to be happy with it.
But this Mahler guy wants to ruin everyone's good time by criticizing literally everything. And if you have a job criticizing anything, you're the bad guy.
It's weird that some people feel this way, but I used the clip of Bruce Campbell as the coach in Sky High to make a point about that. A coach at a school is often disliked for pushing students to their limit, but the reality is that they are helping you to improve yourself, to go beyond what you thought yourself capable of. The same could even be said of drill sergeants in the military, or dietitians. All of them are criticizing your actions to try and make you the best version of yourself. And to be down on criticism in general is going to limit your ability to improve.
In fact, let's take it all away. Things are only good. And if you think something's bad, that's just your opinion.
This has been brought up on EFAP a couple of times, but telling someone that their opinion is just their opinion is kind of worthless. I already know what my opinion is. Thanks for letting me know that it is in fact my opinion.
Anyway, getting back to this redundant, lengthy criminal.
I mostly did this to have fun with fonts here, but people do throw redundant and lengthy at Mahler as criticisms. Length isn't really a negative, even though some people claim otherwise, so I'll just focus on redundant. Mahler does repeat himself in videos, but this is in service of maintaining a through line or consistency. Redundancy would be needless repetition, and I would need several examples before agreeing with putting the label on Mahler. I think sometimes people can confuse redundancy with consistency, because they can both have you repeating things to a degree, but the differences are more than I care to get into right now.
I have heard from a friend that he hangs out with Germans. Everyone knows that Germans are literally responsible for every bad thing ever. 9/11, Pearl Harbor, the Titanic.
Donald Trump. The joke here has to do with guilt by association. The concept that if you spend time with a person, you agree with all of their positions. This is something that is thrown at Mueller due to his interaction with various commentators. I think some people just consider certain figures too reprehensible to even engage with, which is sometimes judged off of hearsay alone. Also, I feel like I should explain this Futurama clip. I was torn on whether or not I should add subtitles to it, and ultimately went with the lazy option. The line from Bender is, "Third place, this is the greatest atrocity Germany's ever committed." Futurama is pretty great. The new season is a mixed bag, though. Also, the part with Trump is mainly a reference to Quentin Reviews randomly talking about his hatred for Trump during a movie review or something. And I used this specific image because it had a funny little background detail of Vice President Pence looking just over President Trump's shoulder.
Length is just a smokescreen used to hide the fact that you don't actually have any points.
The length being a smokescreen to hide points is another criticism that Mueller gets. More specifically, I think it is that his videos are so long to keep people from having the time to respond to them, which seems like a lot of work to go to just to keep people from responding to you.
No one can realistically be expected to watch 5 hours of a cringe video. That's like watching 3 Lords of the Rings movies.
As far as we know, JXE has still not watched all of the Lord of the Rings. What a dirty little Philistine.
In fact, I will show you how to make a more shorter and interesting video right now. Doctor Strange is an incredible film about family, love, and learning to believe in yourself.
How nebulous yet sadly common. I wanted some kind of black hole to represent the black hole of ideas, and the Simpsons clips are as close as I got. I thought about putting the words themselves on the objects and warping them in a similar manner, but I couldn't figure out how to do that.
It entails a woman's journey to reunite with her family by any means necessary, and her struggle with controlling her own power.
So this was meant to be confusing as to who I was even talking about. America and Wanda both share these characteristics, and to add to the confusion, I used clips where they were both on screen. It's more so meant to be a joke about vague and muddled commentary as opposed to having anything to do with the movie.
Scarlet Widow is a conflicted character that only wants to be happy, but so many characters are trying to keep her from this goal. Wanda doesn't want to hurt people without cause, she only wants to be with her children, while Doctor Strange learns the only way to stop her is to give her what she wanted all along. There are some people that try to point out that her children were never real to begin with, but the truth is that even imaginary children can be real if you believe them to be.
I can't remember if I came up with this nonsense or got it from EFAP, but I do know that the stuff with her children was crazy. She invented them so they don't exist, but they exist in every other universe? Let's not think about that right now, or ever again, for our own sanity.
Just like gender. The fact that Wanda is willing to traverse different universes to save her children from another woman's clutches speaks to her commitment as a loving parent.
It's amazing how much you can lie with editing.
She even goes so far as to enter the Illuminati base in a raid. Raid Shadow Legends.
So I don't really have an issue with people putting ads in their videos, but I do have an issue with the way some people try to lead you into the ad. I find it sneaky or underhanded. I'd much more prefer it if you faded to black and then go to ad, or do a read at the end of the video. Also, Raid Shadow Legends is just the go-to meme for in-video ads.
American Chavez is also an amazing character that wants to be reunited with her family, but Mueller doesn't seem to like her very much, probably because he's a racist that doesn't like women. I have no proof of this, but I dislike him personally, so I feel morally justified in denigrating his character.
This just happens too often all over the place. People get called all kinds of things with no context or evidence. And what's worse is that a lot of people are quick to believe it. And the reason I say the morally justified line is because there are in fact people who believe that there are no bad tactics, only bad targets. In all my years on the internet, I've learned to take things with a grain of salt. And it saved me from making rash judgments against people.
Mueller probably also hates lesbians, and doesn't believe that you can procreate by scissoring. This is a different universe. They probably make human intercourse with their brains. just like those aliens in the massive space games.
So this was a lot of me just going with whatever nonsense came to my brain at the time. But it was partially brought on by a question I read in a comment while looking for Doctor Strange clips. While looking at a video with a scene of America's moms, I happened across a comment that read, "How she get birthed?" From what I remember, the poor grammar and spelling just caught me off guard. And the reply to it was about how it was a different universe or something. So it could work in ways not explained. And it all reminded me of the Asari from Mass Effect. The way the Asari work is that they can have children asexually by falling in love with someone, or something to that effect. And I basically dumbed it down to human intercourse with your brain. And I attributed it to the wrong race as a joke about how the people I'm parodying can get certain lore wrong. Kind of an esoteric joke, but I went with it anyway. Also, human intercourse as a phrase is just another line from a video covered by EFAP.
The scene with Professor X in particular is my favorite addition to the entire MCU. I just love the part where all of the Illuminati get embarrassed by being complete trash.
This is another reference to how some video essayists will have the worst takes on media. Again, I personally attribute it to a need to be a contrarian, but it could very well be they are just dumb.
There are some people out there that say Marvel doesn't cinema, but what they actually mean is that sex is better when watching real movies, like Breaking Bad.
So once upon a time in real life, Martin Scorsese said that Marvel wasn't cinema, and a lot of film essayists put out their own interpretation of that statement, because everyone knew it was a dumb thing to say, but nobody wanted to criticize one of the best directors in film history. Mostly nobody anyway. I used the clip from Shark Tale because the pufferfish was voiced by Scorsese, and I reversed the zoom on his face to mirror the zoom on Captain Britain's. As for the thing about sex being better when watching Breaking Bad, this came from an EFAP anniversary stream, where they read off a story about a couple that couldn't get horny without watching the show. Which might sound like a strange thing to read, but it was certainly preferable to an excerpt of a Chuck Tingle novel.
I have also heard some people say that the dialogue is bad in this, but I'm willing to bet that if it was any different, you wouldn't be complaining now, would you?
That is yet another thing somebody said, although it is paraphrased a bit. Basically, somebody was trying to defend She-Hulk, and they said something to the effect of people wouldn't be complaining if the line in question was different. Which, yeah, if She-Hulk didn't say she controlled her emotions infinitely more than Bruce effing Banner, then... Actually, let's just move on. My skin is starting to crawl.
In summary, I think it is a clear mystery where Marvel will go from here, but that's what I find exciting about it.
So here's the test to see if you were paying attention to the video. At the beginning, I said that Marvel had a clear vision of where to go moving forward. Now I'm saying it's a mystery. This is something that happens a lot in videos covered by EFAP. People will contradict themselves and not even recognize it. The best I could do to argue in their favor is that they haven't reached a firm stance on the subject in question. Or they just didn't reread the script.
But I think the impotent takeaway from all of this is that I just don't care about any of this. I scripted this video and put all of this work into editing to show you, the audience, how much I don't care, because my indifference deserves to be noted.
Again, just making fun of how people will make a big show of not caring when it's clear that they do. I also like the line, "My indifference deserves to be noted." It just sums it up perfectly.
The other important takeaway from this is that I'm simply better at making long-form content, because I do it infinitely more than you. Or, well, relatively infinitely.
Another reference to that stupid line in She-Hulk. It's also a fun bit of contradictory information, seeing as I was going down on long videos earlier, but now I apparently do it infinitely more. Also, the line relatively infinitely is just a fun bit of stupid. Anyone want to take a guess as to what is relative to infinity?
Anyways, guys, be sure to remember that I have a game night coming up. Not a lot of people showed for the last one. I don't know why, I'm such a likable guy.
You are all worms and not worthy to be crushed by my heel.
So a part of that is a reference to, I think, Brown Table not getting enough people on his game night. And the other part is mainly Hassan Piker trying his damnedest to belittle an audience member. Although I'm sure there are several streamers that make thousands while verbally curb stomping their fans. Maybe Twitch chatters are just masochists.
Anyway, subscribe to my Patreon. It's 100% free, and you get perks like living in ignorant bliss with the money wasted supporting my faggotry.
Quite a number of people do seem content to pay for sludge. Fun fact though, I pasted over Mauler's Patreon page to make this. Mauler makes good stuff. He is worth your money.
We're almost up to $20,000, and I'm saving up for my 14th liposuction. I want this surgery so bad, man. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next Cringe.
I've worked in the corporate sphere for a few years, and one of the many things that annoy me about it is the terrible acronyms. They throw a bunch of feel-good words together to try and make the first letters into a stupid phrase. And sometimes they don't even complete the whole thing. They just toss the remaining letters on the end. So I did my best to make the worst acronym possible as a reference. And one of my favorite parts of this video are the parody thumbnails here. The reason I like them so much is because they are possibly the worst video essayist takes put to the worst choice of image. The Luke Skywalker picture is from the scene where Kylo Ren asks if Luke is there to save his soul, to which Luke just says, no. Remember when Luke risked his life to save his super evil dad? Now he won't even show up to help his, quote, conflicted, unquote, nephew. That's why it works as a parody to put the word saved across an image from the scene that inverts his character. The Lord of the Rings one is the opposite, in that I took possibly the best scene from the movie and put terrible over it. It's the scene where Sam says to Frodo, I can't carry for you, but I can carry you. And then does it. It's such a great payoff for the friendship they have throughout the films. And it's a great analogy for how you can't carry someone's personal struggle, but you can help them through it. But nah, it's terrible. The title for it is also a reference to how a lot of stuff gets denigrated whenever something new and crap comes out from the same franchise. A good example I can use is when someone says, Star Wars was always silly, remember the Ewoks? And it's like, yeah, remember when Luke got his hand cut off, and Leia was forced to watch her home planet get destroyed? Or when Han was tortured? Some silly stuff there. I also added an anyways guys to the end of it, as a reference to a fading meme from a lost stream. Speaking of titles though, I thought the title for this video was something I came up with originally, but there was a video covered by EFAP that had a similar title, so I may have subconsciously copied it. But ultimately it works as an accidental reference, I guess. And the thumbnail came about because I was looking at the scene where Scarlet Witch rips off Patrick Stewart's head. Great idea, by the way, assholes. And I did a frame by frame and thought that her scary face was actually goofy. But that's pretty much it. There may have been some things that I glossed over or forgot about, but I think it was enough. I just felt like I should explain the video in case there was someone who lacked context and was confused. And I also like going through my processes sometimes. I have no idea when my next thing will come out, but I try and write and record stuff when I can. Hopefully it won't be another full year. Anyway, thanks for your time, and I'll see you when I see you. Ever since its inception, I have been a fan of the YouTube podcast Every Frame a Pause, or... God damn it.